Hey guys, I am back with another book video. It's been a long time since I've been on YouTube. It's been a crazy month for me. I got married, went on a honeymoon. I moved into this very temporary apartment, which is decently nice. It's okay, but my husband and I are in the process of building a tiny house. So we're hoping to move in there in like a month and a half, and then we'll have our very own space. And I cannot wait to fill it with my books and all the other beautiful stuff that I've been collecting. So that's going to be awesome. I do have this print of a ship that my husband and I picked up in Plymouth. It's not the Mayflower, it's the Flying Cloud. But I just love it, and we brought it with to this apartment just to make it feel a little more homey. So in this video, I'm going to share all the books that I picked up on our road trip through New England. This was our honeymoon, and we spent a lot of time antique shopping and book shopping. It was great. New England in the fall was wonderful. We did have a lot of rainy weather, but it kind of just added to the cozy, bookish ambiance. So it was a great trip. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about the books that I bought and where I bought them and what I love about them. Okay, so my first pile of books, these four, we picked up in Hampshire, New York, which is a little town on one of the Finger Lakes. These we actually picked up at the local library. We were there on a Saturday, it was a rainy day, and the library was having a book sale in the basement. So after kind of checking out the library, we headed downstairs and we just browsed through all the books they had for sale, and they had some great classics for like $1 or $2 a piece. It was a pretty awesome deal. So I got A Journey to the Center of the Earth by Jules Verne, which I promptly read. That was the first book I read on our honeymoon. It was great. It was a little unbelievable for me, but it was still a very compelling story. I followed it through, and I'm really interested in Jules Verne. I think I'm going to be reading a lot more of him because of the kind of adventure-y, but also scientific and historical and very intellectual kind of stories that he writes. And then I got an old edition of War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. It's got a great map in here. I think it's very beautiful. I have a copy of War and Peace already, but you can always do with another one. And then we have two editions of Major Writers of America. So edition one, we've got Bradford, Taylor, Franklin, Edwards, Irving, Cooper, Bryant, Poe, Emerson, Thoreau, Hawthorne, Longfellow, Lowell, Melvin, Whitman. Edition 2, Dickinson, Mark Twain, James, Adams, Crane, Dreiser, O'Neill, Frost, Anderson, Fitzgerald, Hemingway, Eliot, and Faulkner. Even though I'm Canadian and I have a Dutch background and I'm very interested in European history, there's something about American history that still just like really gets me. Like one of my favorite courses ever in university was an American Lit class, and ever since then I've just been so enthralled by Emerson and Hawthorne and Fitzgerald and Whitman, and I'm just really excited to have these kind of as reference books. It has most of their major works. Jonathan Edwards, huge fan, I love him, great Calvinist. Washington Irving, I want to read more of him. I've never read The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and I really want to. Just those kind of American myths, American folklore, I want to learn more about that. So these are just great to kind of have as reference books, to learn about the authors and to kind of read their main works and just have them all in one place. And they're also just beautiful. Like they're gonna look so nice just on a coffee table or on a shelf somewhere in our tiny house. I can't wait to find a spot for those. The next bookstore we went to was called Stomping Ground, and it was in Geneva, New York, which is another city on the Finger Lakes. And the store was beautiful. They had some incredible old books. They preserve their old books very well. Like this one is covered in a sheet of plastic. You could just tell that they put a lot of care into collecting and displaying and selling their antique books. So I was looking for an antique copy of Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie because that's one of my favorite children's classics. They didn't have one, but the owner recommended The Little Minister by J.M. Barrie, which I have never even heard of, but apparently it was very popular in its time and has just kind of been forgotten about. Peter Pan became his big work and everyone forgot about this. But it is just a gorgeous book, and I am so excited to actually read the story and to learned a little bit more about J.M. Barrie and the work that he did with children's lit. So that's that. And then my husband picked up this book, Nordic Tales. He's super into Nordic history, Nordic mythology, and so he wanted to pick up this book. It's got some really nice illustrations and then just short stories, short little myths, little folk tales. I haven't read any of them, but he retold a bunch to me one night, so that was awesome. And I know they're great, and I'm really excited. I think this will be a nice book even to read out of to future kids if we have them. Yeah, it's just a great, very unique, great little collector's item. The next bookstore we visited was Northshire Bookstore in Saratoga Springs. We didn't spend a lot of time here, but I really liked this town. They had some great shops, some great cafes, and this was a fantastic bookstore. I picked up 5 books. First one was The Librarianist by Patrick DeWitt. I've been meaning to read this one. It deals with what it means to kind of live your life in books, and I love the cover, and I don't read a lot of contemporary, like recently published fiction, but this one I thought I could swing because it's historical. It's about an old man and his experiences kind of living through books and working as a librarian. It was actually pretty good. I read this on our honeymoon as well. It was a little bit depressing at parts, just kind of seeing the disintegration of a marriage, the loneliness of a life, and then seeing an old man reflect on that. And part of this book also takes place in an old age home where he's with other elderly people. And yeah, it's sad to read about old people who are near the end of their life and they've had nothing but a shit time and they're alone and they're just looking to cling onto anything that they can for joy and meaning and hope. But I would still recommend this book. Then we picked up 3 Penguin classics. I wanted to read A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. It's a novel set in Florence, Italy. It's a travel novel, an adventure novel, but also very intellectual, very interested in the history of places, and deals with some great historical themes as well, especially about religion and gender roles. And so I'm looking forward to reading that one. And then my husband picked up Don Quixote by Cervantus. I don't know if I'll ever get around to attempting to read this book, to be honest. There's nothing really compelling about it for me, but my husband really likes the challenge of reading through a thickie like this. He's read through The Count of Monte Cristo. I've never even attempted that one. I can read a book this big when it's a Russian novel like War and Peace or Anna Karenina or The Brothers Karamazov, then I'll attempt it. But my attention span is not very long, so, you know, kudos to Zach for wanting to attempt to read Don Quixote. We also picked up Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, and we both read this one on the honeymoon, and it was, wow. It was actually my first time reading Of Mice and Men. I've read quite a bit of Steinbeck, East of Eden, The Pearl, Grapes of Wrath, of course, but never Of Mice and Men, and wow. This story made us think. We had quite a discussion about it afterwards because it was just like, wow, what just happened? I won't say any more, but you should read this book. It's very compelling. And then I picked up a copy of The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. I love T.S. Eliot, and I don't read enough poetry, but I know that I find The Wasteland very interesting. I studied it in university, and it was one of those poems that really kind of caught me, and that doesn't happen very often. I wish it did more, but I figured I should have a copy of that to try to kind of train myself to read poetry a bit more. And I do love T.S. Eliot, how he brings tradition into the modern world and then makes it something new. I love him, so looking forward to reading this book. Then we went to Concord, Massachusetts, and we visited the Alcott Orchard House, which was the home of Louisa May Alcott and her family. And we took a tour of Louisa May Alcott's home, and that was incredible. I learned so much about her and her sisters and her parents and what they did for the American intellectual scene. Like, Concord was the American intellectual center during the 19th century. It was super cool to learn about how they were interacting with Thoreau and Emerson, and how all these people together just kind of inspired each other and kept each other going to write the works that they did, which were highly influential in American history. And I want to learn more about that. I want to dig into American intellectual history especially more. And so that tour was great to just kind of get that fire burning again. And yeah, Little Women is one of my favorite children's classics. It's treasured, and it's always been a goal of mine to collect as many editions of Little Women as I can. And so I picked up this copy from the Alcott Orchard House. It has some beautiful little drawings here of the Orchard House. It's got a little introduction and biography of Louisa May Alcott, and then it gets right into the novel. And I think this is just beautiful, and I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna keep it somewhere in my house on a nice shelf so people can take a look at it. Super excited about this. And while we were in Concord, we visited 2 other bookshops. First one was the Concord bookshop, which was great, and they had some awesome classics in there. By that point we were like, oh, can we spend more money on books? Like, this is getting crazy. But then we saw these Everyman's Library editions, and we were like, yes, we need to get one. And we went with Mark Twain, Tom Sawyer, and Huckleberry Finn because American classics when in America. And so my husband has been reading through this, and it's been a long time since I've read Tom Sawyer or Huckleberry Finn. I did as a kid, but I think it's time to relive those, so I'm going to be picking up this one in the future as well. And then we went to the Barrow bookstore, which had some really, really old and rare editions of basically all of Louisa May Alcott's works. There were some editions of Little Women, like first editions, that they were selling for hundreds of dollars, and oh, I wanted them so bad. They were beautiful, beautiful, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't spend $300 American on a book as much as I wanted to. But I did pick up this one, which is Jo's Boys by Louisa May Alcott, an 1886 first edition. I got it for around $40 American because it's in poor condition. It's tied up, and I haven't untied it, but I imagine when I do, it'll fall apart a little bit. But it's still just a beautiful, beautiful copy of Jo's Boys, and I've never actually read Jo's Boys. So if I ever get around to it, I would love to read this book. But I think it'll be kind of just a very treasured piece in our house. I'll have to put it somewhere safe, and yeah, I'm very proud of this. We went to Cape Cod, Massachusetts, which was awesome. We had such a good time just laying on the beach reading, and even though it was October, there was one day where it was like 15 degrees and sunny, and we just went out in our jeans and sweaters and just laid in the sun and read our books, and we saw some sea otters, and the beaches were stunning, and we loved it on Cape Cod, and we'll definitely be going back. And while we were there, we visited a lighthouse, and I forget the name of the lighthouse, which is really too bad, but they had a little gift shop, and I picked up this book, Mayflower Voyage, Community, War by Nathaniel Philbrick, which is a history of the Mayflower and the Pilgrims and the Puritans, basically from when they were in the Netherlands, actually, which is cool, to when they came across the Atlantic and settled in Plymouth. And I am so glad I bought this book. This is one of those history books that is just, it's very dense, like there's a lot of history in here, but it's told in a very compelling way. Like, it's a great narrative. So I was sucked in, I read the whole thing from front to back, and I loved it, and I learned so much. And the cool thing was, we were on Cape Cod, where the Mayflower arrived in Cape Cod in Provincetown, and it went around and got stuck in the shoals, and then it had to come back and settle in Plymouth, and everything that was happening in this book was happening right where we were, which doesn't usually happen for me as a Canadian in the kind of Hamilton, Toronto area. I don't really pick up a history book about Hamilton or Toronto ever and then be like, oh, I know these places, or this is close to where I live, or whatever. Like, local history, I need to connect with it more, but I just haven't. So it was so cool to just be like, okay, now we're going to Plymouth today, and I'm literally going to see everything that I've been learning about in this book. And then, you know, the streets are named after the people in this book, and like, wow, it all came to life to me reading this history book while traveling through that region of the States. I love that. I really want to do this more often when I travel, is get a book like this that I'm not gonna dread reading because it's so arduous, but that I'm gonna like be sucked into and then learn as I go and just feel the magic of like knowing the history of a place so well and so fresh in your mind while you're walking through it. It was an amazing experience to do that. And this is just a great history book. Highly recommend Nathaniel Philbrick. I know he's very well renowned. This is a New York Times bestseller. It is a popular history. It's a good piece of academic work as well. And the last stop on our trip was we visited Harvard University in Boston and had a tour of the campus. That was amazing. And while we were there, we went to the Harvard Bookstore, as you do, and I picked up this book, Veritas, Harvard College and the American Experience, which I was looking for just a good history of Harvard University from Puritan origins to modern day. I was hoping for it to be kind of Nathaniel Philbrick style. Yeah, but when I started reading this book, it was very much like, ooh, it's not very well written. It doesn't connect things. It's not a good narrative, so I haven't been enjoying reading it, but at the same time it is a comprehensive history of Harvard, so if I ever need to look something up, I have it. But yeah, not the most enjoyable read. So those are the books that I picked up in New England. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to keep making videos very regularly about books and writing, and I really am hoping to do National Novel Writing Month in November and set a goal for myself to work on my novel every single day. But it's hard because, yeah, I'm working full-time, I'm doing research and editing work on the side, I am building a tiny house, in the process of moving between places and keeping up with friends and family and being married and enjoying that. It's crazy busy, but I am going to do my best to keep up YouTube, and I also have some other writing projects on the go. I want to start a Substack and find a way to kind of publish and share some of the smaller writing projects that I work on. So stay tuned for that if you're interested. Thanks for watching, guys.